Channel 5 serving the best place on earth. Now, Eyewitness News is everywhere.
And right now, 2 South Bay communities are picking up the pieces after violent storms turned them into tornado alleys.
Twisters tore off roofs and uprooted trees, leaving a vicious path of destruction through the South Bay in Los Altos and Sunnyvale. Robert Honda begins our team coverage.
Well, Dana, take a look at this. This is one section of the roof that came flying off during the heavy winds. Now, repair work and cleanup have been going on for hours here on this stretch of Remington Drive in Sunnyvale. Everyone's determined, but they're also in a daze. To the victims here, it doesn't matter whether the experts have officially labeled this a tornado or not. To them, there's no doubt. It was a tornado. The people in this North Sunnyvale neighborhood are already calling this the tornado of '98, and there are certainly enough bizarre images left behind to make it a legendary day.
Yeah, it was scary. It was really bad.
14-year-old Jamie Kamuri had the best and worst view of the funnel cloud. He was looking out the window of his home when he saw it heading straight toward him.
When it came down, it hit right on our house. What happened was the wind was blowing on the garage, and it pushed the garage in, and the wind was just going in, and it popped a hole right through the top of the roof.
How about the force of the funnel cloud? Could you feel it? Could you have actually moved against it, or was it stopping you from doing that?
Yeah, I couldn't get out of the house. It was the wind. It was funneling, and you couldn't even push your way out. So I was pretty much trapped inside the house. You could hear the fences cracking, like, you know, pushing, and then they just finally snapped. I think from about here all the way down to further down houses, the fence is all gone.
The funnel cloud ripped off the garage doors of Jamie's neighbors, too, tossing a huge trampoline into the trees and lifting trees, including huge redwoods, right out of the ground, before it crashed into the Congregational Community Church, where the pastor had already taken cover. What were some of the sounds and things that you were hearing?
Mostly just breaking glass, falling trees, tremendous rush of wind, and concern for, those were the sounds.
And these are some of the sights and sounds of a neighborhood frantically trying to make repairs so they can stay in their homes. So far, it appears at least 2 of the families will be spending the night with family and friends. Now, the people who do stay put here will have to do it without power. You know, this funnel cloud tornado covered a lot of area in the South Bay and destroyed a lot of homes, not just here in Sunnyvale. Lance Evans is in Los Altos tonight to tell us what happened there. Lance?
Well, Robert, the tornado bounced from Sunnyvale and landed smack dab here in Los Altos along Alicia Way. This was a carport in the backyard of this home. It ended up in the front yard. Across the street here, we see a bunch of trees that are down and wires that are down. As a matter of fact, the tornado destroyed just about everything in its path.
Funnel cloud, hand me that phone.
Home video shows the funnel cloud forming with a tail and then becoming a swirling mass of destruction seconds before it touched down in Los Altos.
Looked up straight up in the sky, and I just saw the clouds swirling around like crazy, and I just grabbed the video camera real quick, ran out there, and next thing I knew, you could see a real good formation.
I've seen tornadoes before up in the sky. This is the closest I've seen one in Northern California. It's absolutely incredible.
Alicia Way was ground zero. The twister struck first in the back of Leslie Denocente's yard while she was in her house.
It felt like an earthquake at first, is what I thought it was, and our doors went flying open, and I looked in our backyard, and all of a sudden all this debris was circling in our backyard.
The tornado uprooted century-old redwoods, bent and splintered numerous fences, and flipped this 8-foot wide overhang from the back of a house to its front yard. Then it crossed the street. Al Herzog heard it coming.
I heard the rumbling, and I knew it was pretty close. The thunder was getting closer. So I started to get up to look around, and about that time the wind came up, and I worried about my window breaking in there. It was so severe.
Next door, emergency officials red-tagged the home of Herzog's neighbor. A large tree went through its roof. And as these aerial shots show, Los Altos High was hard hit. In the midst of the destruction, PG&E struggled to repair power lines to 10,000 customers left without service. And the city's hazardous response team went door-to-door for cleanup. Residents say they were prepared for earthquakes, not for tornadoes.
I kept running around the house trying to figure out where the safest door was, and
Now, believe it or not, officials say the tornado was only on the ground about 3 to 5 minutes and did all the damage that you saw. And in all of that, there were no injuries. Now, we'll have more on these tornadoes in a live report tonight at 10:30, so stay tuned. Reporting live from the South Bay, I'm Lance Evans. Back to you, Mac and Dana.
Has the danger of tornadoes...
Live from the news leader in Northern California, News Center 4, Night Beat. Here's the very latest.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pete Wilson.
And I'm Pam Moore. Thank you for joining us tonight. Peninsula communities are cleaning up following an afternoon of wild weather. And residents are thankful that nobody was seriously hurt. Home video shows debris flying through the air over Sunnyvale as a tornado caused significant damage. Our Night Beat team coverage starts there with Tom Sinkovich tonight. Tom.
And Pam, what a remarkable cleanup effort we have seen here by the city of Sunnyvale and the private contractors it brought out here like that. Damage was really limited to 2 streets, Plymouth and Remington, but boy, what a sight they were just 6 hours ago.
Oh my God, there's a...
In the middle of the brief but powerful storm, a giant piece of debris flew through the air. It was a trampoline, which wedged into a tree a half block from where it was lifted. The winds pulled trees out of the ground. Branches turned into battering rams. A dozen homes lost their roofs. Contents were ruined when hail and torrential rains moved in behind the storm. People here are sure they witnessed a tornado.
Real loud wind, like a hurricane almost, and then after I stepped outside, I heard this real high-pitched howl, very distinctive sound. It almost sounded like a jet engine.
Standing right there and watched it lift the tree off, took it right out of the ground and just dumped it out in the street, lifted up my car and shoved it over into the other car.
Around the corner, parents were arriving at the Congregational Neighborhood Church to pick up their children from day school.
Debris, garbage, everything was flying around, trees were breaking, the kids were crying, the roof in his room broke and crashed down.
14-year-old Jamie Wakira paged his father with a 911 code, then sought shelter inside this home.
I actually went in between a door seal because I thought that would be the safest place to be.
When it was all over, it was hard to comprehend how selective the storm had been. 2 blocks were heavily damaged. The rest of the community was unscathed. Witnesses like Howard Henderson had time to grab their camcorders and document 2 suspicious clouds.
This is right above my head, right outside my garage.
It was stunning how quickly this street was torn apart. People say they'd much rather deal with the kind of natural disaster they're prepared for.
I'll take an earthquake any day.
It is hard to imagine cleanup work going more smoothly or more quickly than the job here in Sunnyvale tonight. Another community cleaning up after a sudden storm is Los Altos. Night Beat's Vic Lee is there tonight.
Well, the weather is calm here now, sort of an eerie calm. You'd never know that a funnel cloud passed through here. In fact, this neighborhood was ground zero in the city of Los Altos. These few blocks closest to the high school, Los Altos High, were the hardest hit. And this fallen tree behind me, with the roots and all, is testimony to that. It's about a 150-foot pine, and it was uprooted by the funnel cloud. And as you can see, it fell on that house across the fence. The weight of this tree totaled that house, I am told. I have not been inside, but that's what firefighters say. Now, let me show you what that funnel cloud looked like. We have video.
This was the funnel cloud, shot on home video by a resident. You can see the violent churning of the air, fueled by powerful winds. It was a sight never before seen by most of the neighbors. This is 6-year-old Alicia Capelli.
I heard it was rattling of the windows and the fence falling over. I heard a little crack of the tree, and it was so scary.
It was only a few minutes at the most, but the damage was astounding. The funnel cloud skipped around like a child playing hopscotch. It jumped through fences, tearing them down like paper, and around homes, above roofs, twisting metal TV antennas like they were straws. This steel garbage can cover was like putty, molded by the powerful force of the air mass. As one walked through the devastation, you became almost immune to the sight of trees down. There were just too many. At Los Altos High School, Wesley Wendell described what he saw.
I saw the thing just forming. There was garbage swirling in the air. It was going crazy, and I was standing there talking to some janitors. We couldn't figure out what it was at first. We thought it was birds. Look up, and it's garbage, and it's just going crazy. And next thing we know, we start to see it funnel down, and I start screaming, tornado, dude.
The funnel cloud peeled away the chain link fence at the baseball field like it was saran wrap. Luckily, Wesley Wendell and his friends were not hurt.
And the wind was picking up. As I started to ride out of there, it was right upon me. It was like I was in the middle of where it was, and there was just debris flying right past me.
Well, as always, when there are devastating events like this, there are the personal stories. And this one is Kathy Klein's and Hans Schwartz's story.
Well, I saw the roof basically lift off the house and fly that way, and then the big tree tipped over and the fence, and lots of things flying in the air. So it was pretty scary.
Right now, we're more or less in the sort of the track of the funnel cloud, the debris cloud. It basically started south, and if you could take a look at trees in the distance there that have been broken, it came from that direction over this house and knocked over this big tree here, took out the fencing. We don't even know where the fencing is now, right? Went over this house and then proceeded to pull up the side, this awning on this house, and then the awning of the neighbor's house, and completely put it in the front yard.
Well, let me show you in the most graphic way I can just how powerful these funnel clouds can be. This is a gas meter from a house down the road that was ripped off by the funnel cloud, and that in itself is an accomplishment. But if you look closely, and Lou Delatorre, can you zoom up here? You'll see this hole here that was created by a small piece of wood that was propelled by the funnel cloud, and it ripped into this metal, and that piece of wood is still lodged inside. That's how powerful it was. Now, let's go to meteorologist Steve Raleigh, who I'm sure knows just how wicked these funnel clouds can be. Steve?
Well, that's certainly a graphic representation, Vic. Thanks very much. I guess the first thing we have to answer for everybody at home, can this happen for tomorrow? It certainly is possible because we're going to have more severe thunderstorms toward the afternoon tomorrow. In the immediate future, you can see some rain already developing on the Doppler radar. Watch right here, especially in the Salinas Valley, but you'll see that wave of rain starting to move up once again from the south to the north. So here's the immediate rain right now, and again, it's going to be moving across the South Bay probably in the next half an hour or so, but everybody is going to get wet again for tonight, and the reason why is that area of low pressure that we've been talking about. The circulation whipping everything from the south to the north. So in the next 24 hours, you can expect more thunderstorms, more gusty winds, and at least a ½ inch to an inch of rain. But then again, we saw more than that in some isolated locations today. So more to come, and we'll have more details on it for tomorrow in a few minutes, guys.
Okay, Steve, thank you. Our thanks to Tom and to Vic tonight. We should also add the Red Cross did set up a relief van in Sunnyvale, but no shelter was open. The Red Cross was looking for motel rooms for those whose homes were damaged.
A quick look now at how things played out today. A tornado and high winds damaged as many as 60 homes in Sunnyvale and Los Altos. One is red tagged and has to be demolished. Dozens of trees were snapped or uprooted. The severe weather also brought lightning, knocked out power. Several hundred homes are still in the dark tonight. Fortunately, and this is amazing, no one was seriously hurt with all of that you saw.
Oh.
You're watching News Center 4 Night Beat with Pete Wilson, Pam Moore, meteorologist Steve Raleigh, and Gary Radnich on sports. News Center 4, 24-hour news, every day, every hour.
Meanwhile, a crew of volunteers from a Cupertino church came to help the neighbors clear out debris. It's in the scriptures, they say, many hands make light work.
Broken windows.
Chris Van Roos' house was hard hit, but they got tarps on the blown-off roof to keep the place dry as new rain started falling. Somehow, the furious winds that raked inside didn't harm her collection of tiny horses, and volunteers helped find Chris' missing diamond ring in the debris. God, she said, works in mysterious ways. Bob Van Hoy's cars were tossed by the storm, but he recalls the tornado of 1951 that did little damage because there weren't as many homes here then. Most neighbors found that the insurance companies are ready to pay up quickly. I'm Carl Sonkin, News Center 4 on the Night Beat.
Be back in the same situation.
I'm Vic Lee in Los Altos. Susan Roberts was still a bit nervous today. The clouds were black and threatening.
She was one of many residents in this neighborhood near Los Altos High School who suffered property damage.
The fence over here had 50-year-old ivy that we thought would be here forever.
This was cleanup day for the folks here. Trimmers were busy cleaning up debris from fallen trees. PG&E crews worked like spiders in tangled webs. At Los Altos High School, the funnel cloud ripped apart the so-called cyclone fence. Workers took away the damaged chain link, while others cleared the debris from the baseball dugout that blew away. The good news is that most of the homeowners I talked to say their insurance companies will pay for their property damage. Although this was an act of God, apparently wind damage is covered. In Los Altos, Vic Lee, News Center 4 on the Night Beat.
We'll have more on our weather when Steve Raleigh returns a bit later on with the complete forecast.
Home video of the real-life twister tearing through the South Bay this afternoon. Entire neighborhoods are left in shambles. Homes have gaping holes in their roofs. And a trampoline goes for the bounce of its life, ending up, as you can see, in a tree. Good evening, I'm Dan Ashley.
And I'm Carolyn Joe. Tornadoes are the kind of thing you expect in Kansas, not California, and certainly not the Bay Area. But this afternoon, a funnel cloud touched down, barreling through the South Bay. Residents are still in shock as they clean up and assess the damage. And Channel 7 Stacey Handler is live in Sunnyvale with the very latest. Stacey?
Well, Carolyn, they made pretty quick work in this neighborhood in Sunnyvale. You can see behind me that house is probably one of the worst damaged. A huge chunk of the roof blew off, and they've managed to at least cover it with tarp. There are police posted here at both ends of the street to guard the damaged homes, about 6 or 7 homes on this street alone. The occupants are not spending the night here. Just about a half an hour ago, cleanup crews finished hauling off huge piles of debris and uprooted trees that were all over the street. It was an awful lot of work. This is not the kind of thing people expect to happen around here. As one neighbor put it, Kansas, sure, but Sunnyvale?
It was a big roar, just like a low-flying airplane.
But airplanes don't fly that low over Sunnyvale. This was a tornado.
It just lifted the trees right out of the ground. The cars, picked the cars up and pounded one into the other one.
The tornado roared through here about 4:30 this afternoon. It caused the worst damage on Plymouth Drive, taking roofs off houses, uprooting trees, blowing debris hundreds of feet, even carrying this huge trampoline almost a block, dropping it off in a tree.
This one broke out, this one cracked, this one broke out, and I was laying right down there with the blanket pulled over my head.
Dee Dee Kuhlman wrote out the frightening scene in her van.
I was crouching down, and there was too many windows around me, my front windshield, everything. And so I climbed to the back seat of my van, and I pulled a blanket that I usually keep in there for softball games, and I pulled it over my head, and I stayed there. My car's bouncing and rocking back and forth, and then it was over.
When Dionysa Eisen tried to close her back door in the middle of it all, something flying through the air whacked her in the back of the head.
Maybe this one was the one who hit my head, because I'm closing the door. The wind is pushing me back.
Luckily, there were no other serious injuries, just a lot of frayed nerves.
I was never so scared in all my life.
And tonight, people are still kind of hanging around outside. They don't have power in, so they're watching the TV crew out here doing our work, and they are still a little bit shocked at what happened. About 400 homes in this area are without power. Electricity lines were blown down or they were brought down by trees. PG&E expects to have that power back on probably by midnight tonight. However, Sunnyvale is not the only place that got damaged. Rigo Chacon is live now in Los Altos. Rigo?
Stacey, we're in a neighborhood near Los Altos High School. To give you an idea as to location, the tornado did tremendous damage here. As you can see behind me, this is part of a structure that was hurled through the air. Incredibly, this is part of a patio that came from the back of this house. This house right now has no electricity, neither does the rest of the neighborhood. Late this evening, the people in this Los Altos neighborhood were coping in the darkness. The power outage, part of the aftermath of a tornado that also ripped through this area.
Everything started flying, and I heard a cracking sound right over me. And in my dining room and living room and bedroom, it took the whole patio off, and there's holes about this deep.
When the force of the wind tore through the walls of her house, Mrs. Celestri had just walked in. The next time she went outside, much of her backyard was destroyed.
The whole thing came up and just completely tore off.
Much of what had been here was now on her front lawn. On Revington Street in Sunnyvale, the human toll of the damage was most visible in front of the Kimuri household. Washira Kimuri did all he could to console his family. Repeated 911 entries on his pager had warned him that something terrible was happening to his 14-year-old son, who was home alone.
So I called him at home. The phone was busy, so I knew something was wrong.
This is what Mr. Kimuri saw when he got home. Much of the front of his house was destroyed, but there was a bigger concern.
I keep looking for my son because he was wearing a raincoat. Somebody loaned him a raincoat, and I made sure I found him first, and when I found him, I was relieved. And
it's just good to know that, nothing's, everything can be, remade or redone, but, everyone's okay.
A little boy who did the right thing by dialing 911 into his father's pager. Dan and Terrell, in addition to seeing the damage and how astounding that is, what is incredible to see is how people here are helping each other, not only literally, but for those who are traumatized, people are offering moral support. These are being good neighbors.
Oh, that's just wonderful to hear, Rigo. All right, thanks very much.
Well, tornadoes in California are extremely rare, maybe 2 on average a year.
It's estimated that we have only 1 to 2 of them per year in the entire state, as a matter of fact. And for more on what happened today, our meteorologist Pete Giddings joins us now. Pete?
The question, was it a tornado? Wasn't it a tornado? 4:30 here was the line of thunderstorms. You can see the purple. That is the most extreme of our echoes. We go light green, dark green, yellow, red, orange, and then purple. This is the storm that we found over the Sunnyvale area. This was just changed again. Now, let's go back to the beginning. The low pressure system has been plaguing us for days. Spawns, showers, and then thunderstorms this afternoon. Some of the thunderstorms were severe, and this thing proves it from 4:30 this afternoon. Now we'll get into the controversy. The rain started to fall in buckets on the peninsula. Mountain View reported as much as almost 1.25 inches. Now, at the same time, in another part of Mountain View, we were getting hail. You could actually see it bouncing on the sidewalk there. Now, the real excitement came when the phone started ringing and they said, a funnel! Well, trees were uprooted. We saw the roof damage. We saw debris being carried aloft. Now, a funnel cloud stays up there like this. And you see it just turning up there. But if it touches the ground and does any damage, then it's a tornado. Well, the Weather Bureau had a real hard time saying it was or it wasn't. As of 10:05 tonight, it was supposed to be straight line damage. Well, 10:45 tonight, they said it was a tornado, but the damage in Los Altos was probably not a tornado. And the nice thing about being in weather is, at the end of every terrible storm, there's a rainbow, and then a brand new day. And I'll have the forecast for that in a couple of minutes.
All right, Peter. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Pete. Well, ironically, the last tornado to hit the Bay Area was also in Sunnyvale in February, and it was small, though, compared to this one. The twister damaged the roof of the Lockheed Martin building. It also knocked over several trees. The damage, though, was minor, and as in this case, nobody was injured.